And joining us in studio is Mr. Arun Babu, Africa Telecommunication Business Model and Transformation Leader for Deloitte, to tell us more about the 2017 predictions. Mr. Babu, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe give us your top 4 major predictions that you have identified which will mostly affect South Africans this year.
Sure. Maybe a bit of context. Deloitte's predictions are done globally, so the applicability of these predictions on a regional basis varies slightly. So I'll pick 4 that I think is more suitable for South Africa. Biometrics, we are expecting 1 billion smartphones to have fingerprint readers built into them. And what that means is that the major use case being allowing yourself to securely protect your devices as you store more personal data on it. And secondly, as other institutions like banks start to use fingerprint readers to let you into the mobile applications that they serve. That's one of the use cases. Automatic emergency braking, cars that automatically detect danger and stop before you even have to think about it. An average human will take about 70-80 meters worth of traveling before you actually make an action, whereas this can be done in milliseconds. Wow. So we expect 6,000 lives to be saved in the US alone this year through this technology, and I expect the high-end cars in South Africa to have this feature by end of the year.
Mr. Babu, why the necessity for such technologies within our smartphones, so to speak?
So as the technology, I mean, we call it sort of the moving the computing power away from the center to the edge.
Yeah.
As the technology gets stronger towards the edge of any technological platform, innovation increases. And smartphones, suddenly the massive computing power sitting in smartphones allows us to create such clever use cases, whether it's a firefighting drone that flies over instead of a fireman putting his life in danger, or detecting a shack fire before it actually happens. And these are the kind of use cases that we will see in the future.
Now, will we see mobile machine learning as a strong entry point to improve responses to disaster relief? As you had just mentioned, instead of 70 kilometers, you can actually, have more time to predict the danger that's coming.
No, absolutely. So if you think about a disaster scenario, most times the telephony network is disrupted.
Yeah.
So depending on the telephonic connection will be a dangerous circumstance. So having computing power or machine learning capability allows an aid worker to predict what medical intervention to carry out. So we're going to see that as one of the first use cases is disaster relief.
But now, won't we see an increase in cyber attacks as, of course, the machines get smarter to actually infiltrate the perpetrators, Mr. Babu?
You're very correct. One of the dangers of any evolving technology is that technology in the wrong hands poses a danger.
Yeah.
You saw that recently in the US elections, the impact of the perceived Russian attack on the infrastructures in the US. And we're definitely going to see that. We're predicting 10 million denial of service attacks this year, and some of them at a scale never seen before.
Now, what is the link between the humans and technology? What can one learn from one another, so to say?
Technology is still very far from being a human being or anywhere close to it. But what it does is that it creates possibilities. It creates cheaper mechanisms of solving social problems. And I always see technology as a savior and a service delivery mechanism rather than a threat to human existence.
Now, Mr. Babu, this technology is obviously going into certain devices. In terms of law, how is this all going to work? Do certain corporations, let's say, for example, Microsoft has to sign a certain law with the technology or the providers of that certain app that is going to provide them that security safety feature?
The regulatory landscape for technology is always a tricky balance between allowing innovation to happen and then preventing the wrong usage of it. So, Chinese government is pretty strict on how technology is used within its borders, so sovereign control of data. In Davos recently, there's been a lot of talk around regulating advancements of technologies like artificial intelligence. So it's always going to be a trade-off between the innovation and controlling the use of technology for the wrong purposes. We're going to see that continue in the near future.
Absolutely. Where can people get more information about this? It sounds like such a wide sense of information that you need to understand before you actually get into the actual topic of receiving those safety apps or whatever it is on your phone. It's confusing me as I'm talking to you about it.
There's lots of information out there, probably an overload. You're welcome to see our own predictions on the Deloitte's website. It's available on our homepage itself.
All right. And what else can Deloitte, shed light into when it comes to your predictions? Like, can you say for sure a certain phone or a service provider is going to have these apps within the next 5 years or 6 months? Are you able to say that? Or it's just surveys
People
at this
make
point?
lives out of predictions and get them wrong. We've been pretty good at predicting our sort of yearly predictions, over 80% success rate in the last 10 years. When we continue to figure out what are the new trends, it's more a guideline than the ultimate outcome of any technology.
Let's talk about those trends, Mr. Babu.
Sure.
What are the current trends that people need to look into when it comes to moving towards a technology savvy type of lifestyle?
I think the first thing to think about is smartphone penetration. Previously, smartphones were the high-end phones that very few had access to. And we're going to be soon in a territory where smartphone is going to be in the hands of every single individual. And then the next sort of barrier is access to internet or data prices. And that's going to fall significantly over the next few years. So imagine a world where everyone has a smartphone, telephone is free, and data is extremely cheap. Suddenly, the possibilities are endless. Whether it's, we're having an education crisis at the moment. The power of e-learning and the ability to bring the best of the world's education to a kid in Lusikisiki. That's the power of technology. And I think future of our country and evolution has got a lot to do with adopting technologies.
We've seen the introduction of the new schools. The new schools that are equipped with the new modern technology way of studying, where you don't have the chalkboards. Is that something that we could look into when it comes to the improvement of technology towards making our lives even better?
Absolutely. I think this is already happening. I think Kenya is the place where a school has been launched where the average cost per kid is about $3 per month, if I'm not mistaken. And it turns anyone into a very smart teacher by using technology, watches the emotion and the feelings of students to understand whether they're engaged or not. And these things are not that far away. We just need to figure out how do we practically embed these capabilities into our education system.
But, Mr. Babu, we can't talk about these things. I heard you talking about data. And a lot of people, we've had this a recent big debate about the prices of data in the country and how much it costs. And we all know that smartphones actually consume quite a lot of data. Now, having so many apps and things within a phone or mobile device, doesn't that mean you're going to have to pay more to actually have data and access to these apps? Because, you can't use them if you don't have data.
Absolutely. It's a practical issue we have to deal with. Luckily, technology gets faster and cheaper as time goes by. The question is how fast. And our prediction is that in the South African market, we're going to see some very aggressive moves from the operators to make data accessible. We're already seeing it from some of the operators. So by end of 2017, we expect significant downward trend in the cost of data and increase in the volumes that's available to customers.
What do you think this is going to do to the competition, though, amongst the mobile service providers?
It's a difficult space for operators. The days of making significant amount of money from telephony services is long gone. So the next evolution is data, and data is not that far from being eroded either. So you have to almost imagine a world where you can consume as much as you want for as long as you want. You're only prepared to pay a certain amount of money for it. And the operators have to evolve their business models and revenue potential and the way they do their business very differently.
Yeah, all right. Well, Mr. Babu, I have to let you go, but just your final thoughts. Let's encourage people to be technology savvy.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think it's a great future for us if we adopt technology, and we have been a bit behind for the last few years. It's time to catch up.
Absolutely. Do tell us more about your website. Where can people get more information about these predictions? And can they find these predictions that you've made on your website?
Yes, you can. So Deloitte, Deloitte.co.za is where you can get all this info.
All right, Mr. Babu, thank you so much for joining us in studio. That was Mr. Arun Babu, the Africa Telecommunication Business Model and Transformation Leader for Deloitte. And we're talking about the various ways that technology is going to enhance your life. Let's take a quick ad.